Welcome, everyone. My name is Brian Smith, and I'm going to do a little bit of an overview of what I think Notre Dame has, what they need, and what they can do in regards to the wide receiver position with recruiting. To start this off, I want to put it in perspective. I'm going to talk about the class of 23, the one that Notre Dame is currently working on. But to do that, I need to mention something very important about the class of 22. Play Tobias Merriweather. Two reasons. Number one, he's just a really good player. Number two, there needs to be evidence, flat out, no ifs, no ands, no projections, that freshman wide receivers will play. It is something that I know firsthand and something that is not even what I bring up to kids that I speak to in Florida, Georgia, and different places I go, Texas, wherever, to scout. Kids want to know for a fact that they are going to play. And the best way you can do that is to show that other freshmen play. Notre Dame needs to figure that out post haste, not tomorrow, not the day after, today. They need to find a way to get Tobias Merriweather on the football field. I do not give a crap whether or not he knows the playbook. There has to be 5 to 10 plays you can teach him, handful of routes, whatever that you're comfortable with. If they can't do that, Notre Dame is not doing its job as a coaching staff, period. Now, on to the class of 23. There's something about this class that is a little bit more unique, at least for Notre Dame, compared to a lot of the other classes that I follow. And I followed Notre Dame recruiting for 30 plus years. This class has about as much balance as it currently stands as any. And this is before the Lions kid makes his decision. I know Miami just offered him. He's the kid out of California. I'm not going to talk about it because he's not really committed, although a lot of people think Notre Dame is right there or maybe even the leader for him. I'm going to leave him out for now, but he's a pretty twitchy kid that can really run and stretch a defense. You can never have enough of those. That's self-explanatory. So I'm going to leave him out. But the kids that are already in the class, I'm going to go through them and talk about why I think they can not only make an impact long-term, but some of the possibilities for them in a short-term manner as well. Kind of going back to the Tobias deal. Notre Dame has 4 kids, in my opinion, depending on how you want to list them, as receivers. I have Dylan Edwards as a receiver, at least for this, because he's the most versatile kid in the class, quite possibly. You could at least make that argument. There's different ways you can look at it. Notre Dame has done a tremendous job recruiting skilled athletes in this class. But we're going to save Dylan just for a second. It has to start with Jaden Greathouse, and I'm actually headed to Texas fairly soon. I booked a flight to Austin to go see him play. He's going up against Austin Novosad's team. Not this weekend, but the one after. I'm going to check it out and maybe see a player or two in a practice or something. I don't know yet, but I'm going to go out there. I don't fly from Florida to Texas to watch a high school game just for the heck of it. There has to be a definitive reason. And the biggest one for me with this young man is I want to see his hand-eye coordination and those 50-50 balls. It's one thing to see it on huddle, and that's very helpful. It is another to see it live. And I did not see him at Under Armour in Dallas. He did not come. I haven't seen him at any other event. I want to see Jaden play right in front of me, kind of see what it is. It's just a personal thing. I'm going to check it out. But this is what I do already know. He plays at Westlake, which is one of the best programs in the United States of America. They've won a couple state titles in a row in Texas. It's a program that wins big at a very high level. I think they're 6A, Division 2 or whatever, Division 1. I can't remember, but they're one of the top 2 divisions in the state of Texas. They're playing against a lot of talent. Well coached, advanced in terms of scheme, footwork, hand-eye coordination, anything they do, regardless of position. If you're starting for them, you have to earn it. And he's been playing, for what I know, at least since his sophomore year, in a really high level in terms of volume of plays, making plays, being a primary guy. Now, Jaden is also 210, 215 pounds, something like that. He's in that vicinity. Size matters. Notre Dame needs a boundary receiver to step forward. And quite frankly, right now they haven't had that happen this season. We don't know why. There's talented guys, but they haven't stepped forward. Colsey could have done it. Thomas could have done it. Etc. Nobody has done that, and it's really hindered Notre Dame's passing game. Either you create separation or you don't. It's what it really comes down to. And in addition to that, they haven't had anybody at that spot like catch one and make 2 or 3 guys miss, run over somebody, whatever, and really do something. That spot is really, really concerning. Can Greathouse come in and play that and make an impact next year? Physically, yes. He's a kid that's going to enroll early. He'll have the spring. Why not? He should, at the very least, be in a position to be the number 2 guy. Why would he not be able to with all his physical traits? He's 6'2" and really strong. He's going to walk in as one of those rare guys that can come in and play at a major program, Texas, Notre Dame, USC, Michigan, whatever, and make an impact. And Notre Dame's depth chart at receiver, just stating the obvious here, is not very good. So there's just not, talent's okay. It's just there's not enough of them. And on top of that, we still need the quote unquote dude to step forward at that spot, as I mentioned a second ago. That boundary spot, the way Notre Dame runs this offense, is very important for back shoulder fades, running a 7 route, some tougher routes where the receiver is probably going to have to make a play that I'm just better than the guy defending him. Jaden fits that as well. So I think out of all the guys for next year, I'm not projecting long-term here, Jaden Greathouse has the most likely capability to play early. And I'm not the only one that thinks that. I know my buddy Brian Driscoll at Irish Breakdown believes that, and a few other people I've spoken to. You can't teach some of his physical traits, and again, playing at Westlake is a huge advantage. So Notre Dame needs to be very careful about how they proceed with the receiver recruiting, because everyone's important, but I can't complain about him or any of the other kids I'm getting ready to talk about either. Let's talk about Braylon James for a second. This is the other kid that is a really good player. He's also from the Austin area, ironically. But he's a little more raw. I've seen him a couple of times, and I've seen basically the same good and bad with him. The body, the explosiveness, the length, the sheer ability to go up and just snatch a football are all prevalent. Tremendous athlete. He needs better hand-eye discipline, not that he doesn't have it, but sometimes, like many young receivers, I'm looking at the ball, and then they, right at the last second, because they want to get going, takes his eye off, and he'll miss an easy catch. Can't have that at the major Power 5 level, and quite frankly, even playing high school football in Texas. You're going to get hit anyway, catch the darn ball. That being stated, his upside's as good or better than about any receiver in the country, and it's just a matter of him adding a little bit more weight. He's certainly not lean to the point where he has to add it to play as a freshman. But I would say that James has at least a 50-50 shot to not redshirt next year, because it's almost a year before he would be playing games. A lot can happen in a year within an athlete's development. Soccer, football, doesn't matter the sport. Today's training is different. The weight room, the trainers, especially in Texas, Lord only knows he has all the trainers he could possibly want there. Any access to film, Notre Dame, they can recommend him to do this, that, or the other to help his flexibility, whatever he needs. And I can't imagine anything more than just discipline, really. But if there's something else, they'll get it for him. And then he's just got to go do it. He's 6'2.5", 6'3", I would say. Just kind of eyeing him, standing next to him, and I don't see an ounce of fat on him. He's going to come in physically ready to play. I would like to see him at 210, closer to what Greathouse is, but I don't know if his body's ready to go through that quite yet. I don't know. But if he can just take care of some of the little things where Greathouse, in my opinion, is already a little bit better, he has as much upside as any guy in the class, like I said. Notre Dame, much like with Tobias, I think he's probably about the best comparison to Tobias. They need to find a way to get Braylon on the field next year, even if he's only going to catch 5 or 10 balls. He's not a kid that's going to redshirt and come back for a 5th year anyway. Either he's going to be a guy for you or he's not going to pan out. You cannot teach the physical traits. Can't do it. So this is the kind of kid that usually Notre Dame misses out on and goes to some SEC school and takes a check to go there or whatever. But he's the real deal on the field, off the field. He's a tremendous student. And Notre Dame needs to find a way to get him on the field too. The only question I have, and I'm not set on this, what position does Braylon play? Is it going to be slot? Is it going to be outside? Is it going to be boundary? He's the rare guy that I think long term, let's go into that just for a brief moment, could play any of the three, but you still have to start him out. Where do you want to put him? I don't know the answer to that. I don't have a definitive one. I thought I did earlier, but after watching some of his film, thinking about it, looking at the Notre Dame depth chart, their needs, how college football is just drastically changing. And what I believe will happen is Notre Dame is going to get a transfer quarterback, which would help Braylon or Tobias or any other receiver on the roster next year. That's going to be a situation where he might be able to come along a little faster than what I'd originally given him credit for, quite honestly. That's my fault. But again, it's a year. And he's playing against really good competition in the Central Texas area. He played for Team Juice, I believe it was, one of the better 7-on squads in Central Texas as well. I mean, there's nothing that the young man hasn't really seen. So Texas DB's got plenty of talent. He's gone against all of them. I think he'll be ready to contribute in some capacity. My only question, and I don't have an answer for it. Do you play him outside? Do you play him some in slot to try to take some pressure off some of the other slot receivers and maybe help Lorenzo Styles play more outside? Those are great questions to ask. And for Notre Dame, Tommy Rees and all those guys to work through, no idea. But it's a good problem because he has the physical traits. Even though he's a bigger guy, he's explosive now. He'll go up and get it. He could play some slot. Maybe you use him in the slot on the goal line. Let's call it what it is. Every team runs picks. I do not care what they call them, rubs, whatever. Every team runs picks. He's bigger and he's twitchy enough. Maybe you use him on some kind of in and out route, and he kind of helps navigate the safety away from the outside receiver, maybe Lorenzo or somebody. He's a guy that can do that a little bit easier than some other guys that might play slot. So I think that's a possibility. But again, if they do just want to put him at one spot so he kind of learns everything, I get it. The third guy that I want to talk about is the one that nobody seems to really talk much in regards to how he could make an impact or even what he can do at Notre Dame in general. Rico Flores. That is a mistake. I saw him at Elite 11. He was one of the receivers. He lives out there in that area. And he just has a knack for separating from the defensive back. Forget for just a moment about speed or quickness or strength or height or length. At the end of the day, it's a yes-no checkbox for the receiver to get the balls thrown to him consistently anyway from the quarterback. Are you separating? Yes or no? And he found a way. And what was unique about Rico, he would do so against zone. He would do so against man. He has been coached. I don't know anything about his background. I met him, talked to him a little bit. Great kid. But he figured it out. And he's getting more athletic, getting stronger as he, goes through high school. Just watched some video of him before I did this video. And he absolutely has gotten faster just since I saw him in June, in my opinion. Now, I can't compare video to seeing him live quite the same, but he ran a post route in a recent game. It was a beautiful money ball. I mean, he caught it just right here. Great pass by their quarterback, so tip of the cap there. But he had a natural gait. He trusted in himself. He didn't lean. He didn't lunge. He didn't take his eyes off. Did all the things you're looking for, which was what he was doing during Elite 11 in LA, but with a little more speed, in my opinion. That guy is going to be a good football player at Notre Dame. I also think he can contribute. And he's much like Braylon. I honestly think, even just kind of putting it through my head right now, he could play slot or he could play outside. He's built and his game is similar to Lorenzo Styles. That's not a problem for me because I would like to see another guy like Styles on Notre Dame's roster. It's just a matter of, where do you play him? Do you play him opposite of Styles? Do you get him on the field if he really impresses in fall camp? I have no idea. I'm not sure if he's enrolling early, but I would assume that he is. He's at a public school in California, so it shouldn't be that big a deal. Now, can they find a niche for him? He's a guy that I would even trust just the way he catches the ball. And I don't know if he wants to or has an interest He would be a guy I would trust as a punt returner. That's the kind of hands he has and savviness, just to put it in perspective. If you're putting somebody back on punt, no matter the level, it's got to be somebody you trust, because you can lose a football game in a heartbeat with a punt being muffed and the ball going the other direction. Just ask Miami in that Texas A&M game. Completely changed the complexion of that football game. So Flores is a kid that I really like, and I have him higher on my board than what some others might. But again, I've seen him live. That helps. And then seeing the film a few minutes ago added to my suspicion, because I'd heard Driscoll say he looks quicker, so I went and checked it out. He can run, man. He can really run. So the last piece here, after Greathouse, after James, and after Flores, is a guy that I personally have in the Notre Dame class as a receiver more than a running back, and that's Dylan Edwards. And for this podcast in particular, as a freshman, now they're going to use him in some capacity in the backfield next year. There is no linebacker in America, regardless of level, NFL included, that wants to be lined up against him in a one-on-one. He's sub 4.5. He's on a slow day. He's sub 4.4 on most days. And he's done it electronically. He's that guy. So if you line him, I mean, it doesn't even matter which guy you put in there, the backfield with him. Put a tight end on the other side. It doesn't matter. You put Eli Raridon tight end on the other side and make people think you're going to run with Dylan, fake a sweep to him, and then maybe he cuts up the middle and he's on a one-on-one situation with a linebacker. Good luck to that linebacker. He's not the biggest guy. He's 5'7" or something like that. But if you hit him, man, that's hard. That's really hard for a defense, because once he gets the ball, his acceleration is very, very good. And that leads to my overall point about receiver. You notice how I mentioned the slot position twice already, Flores and James. I think both of them can play it. And to be honest with you, Greathouse probably could too. He's such a savvy player. I just think his body type really fits boundary, and Notre Dame needs one. Let's focus on that. If he ends up playing some slot in situations, whatever. But to that point, there's no reason that Dylan can't be the guy that you fake the jet to. There's no reason he can't be the guy that just catches a bubble screen once in a while, or they fake a bubble to him, and the guy that acts like, or comes out and blocks on a previous play that's a bubble, fakes it, and then he goes down the field. You can get somebody like Eli Raridon to score an 80-yard touchdown on a play like that if the safety comes down hard enough. That's a big play in college football. Notre Dame needs to find a way to get him the ball, and out of all four of these guys, he would seem to be the easiest, because some of this stuff is just generic. Anybody can do the shotgun catch and get that little pop pass. It's the most generic stat in the world that it's a completion. But Dylan should have 15 catches next year at minimum. To be honest, it's probably closer to 30 if they want to utilize him in the slot quite a bit, and he can learn some of the plays. You're not going to catch the kid very often, and it's hard to tackle him in a phone booth. I think Notre Dame can do that and do it, quite honestly, pretty successfully against any level of team. I mean, you got some lower level team, like they're playing 2 or 3 teams next year that they're going to squash. Okay, fair enough. But they're also going to play some really good teams. They're going to play Clemson, I believe, that's on the road, etc. Dylan's the kind of kid that can even the playing field, rather quickly, because he can take a 5-yard hitch and turn it into a 70-yard touchdown. Got to have those guys. And overall, that's why I made this podcast. For Notre Dame to take that next step as a program, you cannot be in a position where you're only methodically moving your way down the field. Even this year, that's a bit of a problem. And they've got Michael Mayer. He is not coming back, folks. Let's not kid ourselves. I'm sure there's going to be a post I'm going to read on some Notre Dame message board about why Michael Mayer needs to come back and what that guy's really trying to convince himself is. Although I just want Notre Dame to have him, he's just better off, and it's garbage. He's going to turn pro. So Notre Dame's going to have to use receivers more next year. Stays, Raridon, guys like that are all good players. Kane Brong, etc. That's great. They're not Michael Mayer. They're going to need Greathouse, Edwards, James, Flores, all of them to quote-unquote contribute in some capacity next year. Even again, if it's just running a rub route, like Braylon doing it, a fake on a screen and a throw after Edwards is the guy that acts like he's going to get the ball. Football is a team sport. but speed helps the team sport work really well. And Notre Dame has 4 guys that can run. Of course, Edwards is the fastest of the bunch, and they're all very dynamic. There's no reason that they can't contribute early in 2023. That leads me to my final point. Often Driscoll and every other group that covers Notre Dame, quite frankly, will mention how quarterback helps bring in receiver. That's fact. It also works in the other direction. Notre Dame has a very attractive group of receivers in this class, and although it's only one guy, Tobias Merriweather is a pretty attractive guy from the prior class. They have a 24 quarterback commitment in C.J. Carr. Everybody in the world that covers Notre Dame or follows Notre Dame or both, whatever, know about him. If they're going to get a class of 23 quarterback to sign, it would be nice to see Tobias play. That's another little point I forgot about earlier. I should have mentioned, hey, this is what I'm going to be working with. This is a gazelle. That's great. That's not hard to do. If he just catches 3 passes this next game against BYU, he could catch them for 30 yards. It would be nice. I mean, there's not many guys who walk out on the field that look like Tobias Merriweather, but there aren't many that look like Jaden Greathouse, Braylon James. And while, Flores isn't the tallest guy, he's put together. And then when you see Dylan walk out there, if you know anything about football, the first thing that if you don't, there's something wrong with you with this. Immediately he can fly. Why? He's about 5'7". If he couldn't run really fast, he'd be in a lot of trouble. That dude can pick him up and put him down. Any receiver that comes into this group, again, could be Lions or something, they would add would be great. But even as those 4 guys, and I know, again, Dylan's probably going to play multiple spots for Notre Dame, running back and slot, you're talking about a scenario. It's very good. It's a top 10 receiver class, possibly top 5. I don't know. Ohio State's is the best. Beyond that, I don't know. But you're looking at a group that can compete with anybody on a given Saturday, and that's going to be attractive to a quarterback. I have no idea. I've looked at some of the names that are kicked around. I have no idea. I haven't called anybody. I'm not looking to figure it out. That'll take care of itself. I'm sure some of the kids they're looking at, they're trying to flip from some other school or whatever, and there's probably a few others that are kind of raw they're trying to bring along. That's fine too. They need a quarterback in the class of 23. I think that the 4 young men that I just mentioned are really, really talented, and I think all of them will help bring in one of those. So with that in mind, keep this in perspective. Recruiting is fluid. They could add, they could lose it. Who knows? I'm not trying to keep up with it, but in today's age, there's no such thing as a commitment. But as of right now, the 4 kids they have committed, could be 5 if they get Lions, is really good. So Notre Dame football is in pretty good shape with this class, with the receiver core. I don't think there's any reason to go against with this receiving corps. I mean, they've got the skill to make an impact. So once again, Brian Smith, everybody have a great day. Thank you very much.